This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, Police Academy is celebrating its 35th anniversary this year. Oh man, I would have been 12 years old when that hit the theaters in 1984. And we all know the story. It was a dark and stormy night. And, you had this ominous figure patrolling the hallways, and see something ominous goes on behind a door whenever the lights go out. And the rest is history. We were introduced to Cadet Eugene Tackleberry, played by the wonderfully talented David Graf, and I have his widow, his wife, Kathryn Graf, on the phone with me to honor his memory. How do you do, Kathryn?
Hello, nice to meet you and not see you, but say hello to you, Greg.
Well, I sometimes, with some of my guests, it feels like we are meeting, I try to keep this as down to earth as I can and comfortable for the guest, and I can tell that you've got a very down to earth personality.
Yeah, I do.
Well, David Graf, of course, played Tackleberry in Police Academy, and I just wonder, you two got married before he did the film. Tell me about how you two met.
Oh, well, we met in a place called Skowhegan, Maine, and we met at a summer stock theater where I was doing an internship through college, and David was a professional actor doing several shows while there was a strike going on with Screen Actors Guild. He had just moved to LA from New York, and a strike happened, so he was doing theater, and I was hammering nails and doing all the grunt work, paying my dues. And that's how we met.
Yeah.
And we had an extraordinary summer, I did, and I still have a lot of friends from that summer. There were even Northern Light shows going on when we were up there. It was really a beautiful place.
Yeah, was it love at first sight?
In a way, it was, yeah, strangely enough. Yes.
Give me a little bit of David's background, before we get talking about his acting work.
His acting background, is that what you're asking me, Greg?
Well, just like his upbringing and how he got into acting.
Okay, so he was born in Ohio, in Lancaster, Ohio, and he went to college as pre-dental. His father was a dentist, and then he got involved in the theater there, and the rest is history. He kind of dropped out of that. He did go to Ohio State for I think a semester to pursue pre-med after his in a pre-medical kind of thing to advance his career and advance his studies, and he dropped out to move to New York and did the usual stuff, waited tables and did summer stock and did all that kind of fun stuff and trying to make it in New York. And then he went on to Password. He went on to Password? Yeah. The Pyramid Show.
Okay.
And he won with Patty Duke, who was the celebrity, and he was the actor. Just somebody trying to make it. I think he introduced himself as a waiter, maybe. And he made a lot of money on that. He did well, and so that kind of changed his whole life in a way. It gave him a chance to buy some nice clothes, to start thinking a little bit more loftily, I suppose. And he didn't make a lot, but it helped his ego a great deal. He then booked a job with Arthur Penn for a movie called Four Friends.
Okay.
And that would wind up changing his entire life after that. And then he moved to LA, where they told him, he had the kind of stuff for film because he was such a character-looking actor. What Jack Nicholson once said, this is years later, but I heard this and I always thought it was great. He took a look at one of David's headshots and said, with a face like that, he's going to work a long time. So he did very well then. So he moved out to L.A. So that's how he began. Kind of, he got lucky, as most of us have to do in this business, and he played it pretty smart too. So he did a good job with it.
I thought it was funny.
And then he actually went back on the Pyramid Show and as a celebrity and paired off against Patty Duke, and they all introduced it and they showed the old footage of him and he picked her up when he won and it was really sweet, and they became friendly with one another after he became a celebrity. So that was kind of cool.
It's funny you mentioned the dental thing. Could you imagine Eugene Tackleberry as a dentist? He'd be the most frightening dentist since Laurence Olivier in Marathon Man.
Yeah, nobody wants a gung-ho dentist.
Funny stuff, yeah. No, yeah, I grew up with the Police Academy films, and I gotta say, with all due respect to Roger Ebert, I never understood his review of the original film. I think he gave it like a half a star out of 4, and said he could not find anything funny in it. Now, to his credit, I will say he did offer something constructive I agree with. He said, what if, Moses Hightower was afraid of everything? You know what? That might have been actually funny, Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's
so
very funny.
I get his point there, but the same token, it's kind of like, I watched the original Police Academy. I've seen all except for Mission to Moscow, but I watched that original film, and I think it was very ambitious. I think there was a lot of, like all the training stuff, they didn't miss a beat on that. Not that I've been to the Police Academy, but I'm assuming this is stuff they go through, this kind of training. I found the film very funny. I thought it was very ambitious. That opening joke with Tackleberry is outrageously funny, and I think it was a fantastic way to open the film.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how it would fly in our current climate, but at the time it was all good fun. Now of course it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more scary.
Yeah.
But at the time it was a lot of fun, and it was, I thought, very silly and very funny, and it was very popular. People thought that was very, very funny.
I still think it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too.
That opening scene to me really set the tone. It was Hugh Wilson, of course, the director, gone on to do the first Wives Club and such. I loved the ominous feel to that opening scene with the rain, and you got young Eugene Tackleberry in the halls, and I love it, the fact, when this guy comes out of his office with a briefcase, the guy with the briefcase kind of looks ominous until he speaks. It's like he just wants to leave, and he's like afraid of Tackleberry. And then, of course, he comes across he sees something going on at the end of the hall and the light under the door. And I loved it. He presses against the door with the gun and waits for the music cue there, and he kicks the door open, blam, 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 blam with the gun, and then he turns the light on. All these people just sitting there, and you got congratulations, Tackleberry, or something like that. And it's this, you guys, the woman's like, surprise.
Yeah, it was a very cute opening. Well, I thought the whole first Police Academy was very good. A lot of them were good, I thought.
Yeah, well, that first one certainly had a lot of ideas. Talk about how David Graf got this role.
Oh, well, they really searched high and low for Tackleberry. There was, because they needed to find somebody who, was kind of a little too avid, and at the same time you can't be afraid of him. So they had to find basically a gentle giant in a sense. They did, I guess, audition quite a bit of people. A lot of them came in. Some people came in with guns. People got crazy, and apparently the stories are pretty good about how many kind of little scary scenarios were with the audition process for Tackleberry. How David scored it was because he had such a sweet demeanor and such a sweet heart, and it showed. It came through, even though he was being, very excited about guns. You still sort of trusted that he'd be okay. Like I remember once. I don't remember if this ever made it into one of the movies. I think it was dropped, but I might be wrong. I don't remember. Where two little kids were eating ice cream cones, and Tackleberry had to pull a gun on them and said, "Drop the Jamocha almond fudge." And as I say, I don't remember if that ever made it in, but I remember them talking about how that's a little freaky. That's a little weird. We don't want to draw a gun on a couple of little kids eating ice cream cones, but it was a very funny line. And I don't remember how that worked out. But the point is that in line of what we're talking about now, everybody would just know that somebody like this particular Tackleberry would not have hurt the children, even though he had a gun drawn on them. So I think that's what they were looking for with Tackleberry. And got it with David. And I remember when he got the job, he was also up for a smaller role in an art film, Sean Penn film. And I remember, much to my embarrassment now, I said, "Oh, you got to take the art film. This is so great. This is so beautiful, and it's a great story." And his agents were like, "Are you out of your mind? Go for the cheap tricks. Go, go, go." And I'm so glad he did, because, of course, it was a very successful series of movies. So that worked out well.
Yeah.
I should not be an agent, yes.
Well, when I was in high school, I got to pop up the name of this actor who played the police captain, Robertson. Oh, yeah, George R. Robertson, who played Chief Henry J. Hearst. He came to the high school to do a talk about UNICEF, and this was, oh my goodness, about 30 years ago. I still remember it, and he signed a thing for me, and very, very nice man, and played a lot of clips from Police Academy to get people started. Had to bleep out a few lines for us high schoolers, but nonetheless, there was a good turnout to that, and people loved these films, and and of course the first time you see David Graf, he shows up in a Jeep. Now, the Jeep, was that his, or was that something that was brought to set for him to just drive?
Oh, no, that was not his. He did not own that. And then when he had the Bigfoot truck, remember, in one of the other shows, that was not his as well, thank God.
Oh, you don't have that parked in the driveway?
Yeah, exactly. Believe me, he would have. I mean, David was a lot like your character, so he would have gladly taken all that stuff if they let him.
Well, I liked it when he shows up, and everybody's getting their clothes, and he goes, "Guns, when do we get guns?"
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. He was very funny. There was so many memorable scenes. Do you have a favorite Tackleberry scene in any of these movies?
Well, okay, so one I always remember and I always really like was when he's describing his love for the Colleen Camp character, when it was in number 2, when they have all that kind of weapon sex, that scene. And then afterwards, he's at a bar with Steve Guttenberg, and he's trying to tell him that he's fallen for a girl, and he says, "Lincoln Ocean Victor Edward." And, Steve Guttenberg's like, "Oh, you're in love." And I just thought that was so sweet. Lincoln Ocean Victor Edward. He couldn't say the word, but he had to tell Steve Guttenberg that he was falling in love with someone. It was very sweet. So I always kind of liked that one. It's one of my very favorites. And then when he gives Colleen Camp the the little handcuff earrings when he's picking her up on the date, and he says gift in this really sweet, cute way. It's just, that made me laugh too. I really liked the number too, maybe because I'm prejudiced, because so much of it was about David. They really gave him a big role, and having Colleen there and having a love relationship was, I thought, very sweet, and it makes you you endear Tackleberry more, so that the guns become, it's a good balance. It's a good balance between the violence and the sweet guy there. And I liked Police Academy 2 the best.
Okay.
And I love Lincoln Ocean Victor Edward a lot. I love that.
I've heard a lot of great things about Colleen Camp. I've interviewed a lot of people that's worked with her, and they've all said positive things. What was it like for him to work with her?
Oh, they really got along really well. She was really nice. She came over to our house for dinner when she was married to John Goldwyn. And I remembered poor John Goldwyn stepped in dog poop in our yard. It was very embarrassing for me. But they were both really, really sweet. No, she was great. I mean, she's just a ball of fire. She's a lot of fun, and I hope she's doing well. I've lost complete touch with her, but I know she's producing a lot now, and she's great. They got along really well. I mean, David got along with almost everybody on planet Earth, so we didn't have any of those hang-ups in our careers.
That's good.
Nice. Yeah,
that is great. You don't hear about that, and the media likes to dwell on the negative. So
yeah.
Well, that first film, we really got a great introduction. There is some scenes in that I gotta bring up that, just to spark those fond memories. And one, of course, was where he has Leslie Barbara, played by Donovan Scott, who's this timid guy. He wants him to hit him. He goes, hit me hard. He slaps him in the face.
You're right. I forgot about that one, actually.
And he goes, was that good?
Donovan, I'm in touch with them every now and then. I see him and his partner. So he was that. Yeah, there's so many good stuff in there. And I see Paul Maslansky, who's the producer of all the police academies, and he's still looking to possibly do something else with it. I don't know if that's going to happen or if it has happened. I really don't know.
Well, I think they should. And you want me to tell you what I think they should do? I think since Lassard is gone, I think it would be a great idea to make Kerry Mahoney, played by Steve Guttenberg, have him be the one promoted to Lassard's part, and kind of have, like G.W. Bailey's Lieutenant Harris, kind of like he was kind of retired because he was kind of driven to it. He couldn't work under this, and have him like get a couple of cadets like the Blanks Copeland guys to try to sabotage this or whatever. That's what I would do.
Well, that's a great idea.
I
don't know if anything's happening now. They did a documentary series. They were doing a documentary on the Police Academy movies, and I went in and they brought in people from all over the country to talk about it, people that were involved in the film, and mostly the actors. And so I reconnected with a few people, but I also just got to talk to the people that were doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And they were telling me how everybody's doing and what everybody's doing and where they all are. And it's still not a close-knit group, but everybody, I don't think there's any animosity to anybody in that group. I think everybody gets along and stays in touch as much as possible, which is really nice.
Yes.
So I think they'd love to work together again. I really do.
Well, that would be what I would do, because, George Gaines is, of course, gone. I would, after his passing, like, say, Lassard passed away, the next person to take his job, of course, is Mahoney. Because you could see Mahoney kind of being that naive kind of Lassard type, but still have him be Mahoney, Yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
And then bring in some new recruits, and bring them in.
We're going to try to do siblings, that not siblings, the children of like a young Tackleberry. So it would be like, supposedly David's son or whatever, or daughter, who, that is also, kind of gung-ho and that type of person, and to bring in a second generation of some of the guys and girls of the show. So I don't know. I don't know. For all I know, it could be getting written now, I just don't stay in touch that way about all of that. But I do, I see Leslie Easterbrook quite a bit when I was in LA. I just moved to New York, so, all that's kind of not going to happen anymore as much. But I got to connect with her and Scott Thompson, a lot of Brandt. Brandt was out for this documentary, Brandt von Hoffman. Him and Scott were the two that get the buzz cuts and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Scott Thompson, of course. I didn't realize this until I was doing some research on this film. It's like, oh, gee, Scott Thompson was Arnold in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Remember Judge Reinhold? Hope you had a hell of a piss, Arnold.
That's true. No, he's had a pretty good career.
And of course, what's Brandt von Hoffman doing now? Because I remember him as Kyle Blanks.
Yeah, he does still. I think he's still doing some stand-up. He's semi-retired, more or less, because I know he moved to St. Louis he got remarried, moved to St. Louis with his new wife, Wendy, and seems extremely happy. So he's living on a lake, and he's telling me, you got to come to St. Louis and ride in my speedboat and stuff. So he's having a good time in his life. I mean, he's like, he's probably closing in on 70 now. So, time is marching on. A lot of people are retiring or semi-retiring from the business.
Well, tell me, do you think Hoffman and Thompson had to go through a lot of therapy after being in the Blue Oyster Bar?
Yeah, probably.
I thought that was funny. Yeah, but yeah, that you mentioned, of course, Donovan Scott and Leslie. Yeah. Donovan Scott, I actually reached out to, and I haven't heard back from. But I know he read my Facebook message. I never know what people think when I reach out, because there's so many interviews that go wrong. I've seen celebrities get put on the spot by people that are just trying to make a name for themselves. And it makes things harder for people like myself who just have a passion for this stuff,
Well, that's a good point. I don't know. That's interesting.
I wonder if his butt's still sore from having it whacked by that that baton by Harris.
I don't remember that. You must have just seen this movie recently, because I don't remember all the details now.
They were running. They were in practice there, and he falls on his face, and Lieutenant Harris goes, "Get up, Barbara, get up, Barbara." He starts whacking him across the head with that baton stick.
Oh, my God.
But no, I love that. And Leslie Easterbrook, of course, she went on to be in The Devil's Rejects.
She went on to be, it's so funny because she came into my place when I had moved back to LA, so I go back and forth a lot. And I was surprised because my kids looked at her and went, when she was not in the room, it was like, she's in The Devil's Rejects. And I thought, they know her from the police academies, but no, the new generation knows her as the Devil's Reject person. And she's got a great career doing horror movies. She does a lot of slasher movies. So she had me watch several of them, or I wanted to, and I was writing one myself, so I was watching her stuff, and it was too gory for me. It was too intense for me, but my kids love them.
I love horror films too, but I also love slapstick comedies and stuff like that too. I grew up because I had an uncle that owned a video store from 1981 to 1988, and I grew up with a lot of these films and the Police Academy films. There was one after another from 1984 to 1989. I remember George Robertson. When I met him, he said that the plan was to make 10 of those movies.
Oh, wow.
That was the plan.
Huh.
And when I met him,
He made 7.
he made 7. They can still do. Can do 3 more if they want to. I think with the cast being older, I think there's some opportunity there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know Paul Maslansky wants to. I just don't know how far it's gone. I can't remember what somebody told me, that Paul wanted a specific thing, and I don't remember what that thing was that was holding it up. Like, producers wanted to do, I don't know, maybe use somebody new or something, and he was holding on to a specific kind of, whether it be a plot or the same actors. He was kind of holding it up by being stubborn about wanting it a certain way. But I don't know what that way is. And in fairness to Paul, he loves this thing. He loves it like it's his own baby. So, I get that. You want to kind of hold on to, whatever it is that you love about it.
You want me to tell you what I think? You want me to tell you what I think? I think that they should avoid remaking it. And I think they should kind of carry on. Like I said, with Mahoney playing, like getting promoted to the Lassard role, it means Mahoney still is Mahoney. And have the new recruits come in and maybe play around with some of the stuff and ideas that made the original so popular. Yeah. Yep. I think that would work without it being a remake. Why not have it carry on as an 8th movie?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is.
Yeah.
If at all. I mean, for all I know, there could be something coming out. I mean, they did try to have a series for a period of time. They had a animation thing. I stopped following it for obvious reasons after a while. I mean, David's been gone for 18 years now, so obviously my life has moved on to other things. At the same time, of course, as I said, it is almost like a family, and they have always included me, and I really feel good about that, because they didn't have to, and they have. Every time there was ever a little party or a get together, Tim Kazurinsky, who was in the movies, was in Wicked. He was in in LA, and we all gathered for that, and we had a little reunion and stuff like that. So that was really nice. I get to see them all, but I don't know. Nobody talked about any plans or had heard anything about being, summoned to do another one. So I don't know. It might be over.
Well, you know what? I'm really sorry for your loss, because he wasn't really that old when he was gone. I read that he had passed during his son's wedding. Is that information correct?
No, it was my brother's wedding.
Oh, your brother's wedding.
His sons at the time were only 10 and 7 when he died.
Okay. I think somebody got their information wrong online.
Possibly. He was almost 51. He was 9 days away from being 51, which is very young. If you're not there yet, when you get there, you're going to go, wow, now?
Yeah. Well, like, did he have health problems or something, or was this just something sudden?
It was a genetic thing, I'm afraid. So
okay.
His father died the same way, same way, and the same age. So
okay.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah, we didn't see it coming. So that's the fact. And he was pretty healthy. People like to think he had this or did that or did this and that, but it's not true. He was fairly fit, pretty good shape. Didn't smoke. He did smoke for a long time, but didn't. People always are trying to find reasons why people die early, but the truth is that sometimes things just happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for your loss. I mean, he was definitely a gift. How have you been able to move on past that? I know you can't always be right over it, but...
What's that?
You can't totally be over it, but you've obviously moved on.
Stays with you forever. Yeah, but I've moved on. I started writing after he died, because I stopped auditioning for what I was doing, my acting and stuff, and then my writing took off. So I wrote several plays, and several have been produced, and I found that I liked writing even more than acting. So I've been lucky to have rebooted and reinvented myself, and then I had 2 children to raise, and I've been busy, but I've always been that way. I'm a little bit like Dave. Dave and I were very similar people. We have a lot of energy, and there's just really, we're going to find new things, and we are going to be okay. So It took me a while. It was hard, but yeah, I feel pretty good about how I did things, frankly.
I read, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that you did a play, was it, called, what was it, Life with David? What was that?
It was called Surviving David.
Surviving David. I never knew about this until today when I was doing a little bit of last-minute research. Talk about preparing this and doing this.
Well, like I said, I didn't really want to go out on auditions anymore. I had 2 small kids, and we had always balanced our careers by helping watch each other. So we were both parents and actors, and with him gone, it became much more all my responsibility. So I decided to write, and also I was just too aggrieved. So I had to, I didn't want to see people. So I started to write, and it was about, maybe 6 months, a year, somewhere afterwards. And I was taking a couple of classes, acting and whatnot, just to kind of express myself. And finally I called up a friend who I knew that wrote one-person shows. He helped people write shows. And I said, I'm in this acting class, and they're having me do Neil Simon, and I could chew up and spit out Neil Simon for breakfast right now. I am so full of rage and upset. And he goes, come on in and write it down. And I did. And it took me about a year and a half or so to write it and put it on its feet, and then I acted. I was in it. So I was a one-woman show, and it was about being a widow after the death of my husband, and I was 42, and so it was kind of in my prime of life, and how it felt, and how it, unlike I thought it should feel. Like you think one thing, but the truth of grief is that it's, very individual and very insane. It's crazy. So how crazy I felt. So. And that's what I did, and it was very successful. And I did it in L.A., and then I brought it to New York for the Fringe Festival there, and we won an award for it, me and my director and the people that are helping me. And, it started my career, more importantly. It started me having confidence in how to write. And so I started writing more and more plays, and now I just moved to New York, and I'm probably going to try to reboot my career a little bit differently, and maybe try to write a book. So I just keep reinventing.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm glad that. No, David was so funny in that movie. And a couple other scenes I got to bring up of him in the original film, and I love reminiscing scenes that just make me laugh. One, of course, You have Harris, Lieutenant Harris, doing these scenarios where, you see the burglar come through take the television or the stereo, come through the house, out the window, and he says to Hooks, "What do you say, Hooks?" And of course, Hooks says, "Stop! This is a stick-up." And he goes, "Sit down, Hooks." And then he calls Tackleberry up. And the moment Tackleberry up, this is not going to go well. He does the same thing, and he goes, Tackleberry, "Drop that stereo before I blow your gosh darn nuts off, asshole." And G.W. Bailey turns around and goes, "Tackleberry, we really need to talk."
I remember that. That's very funny.
Oh, that was great. That to me is one of the most gut-busting scenes in the movie.
That's funny. Yeah, no, that was great.
And another one I've got to...
There were so many good ones. Like you said about the Bubba Smith's character, we were just talking about Bubba last night because I'm out here. I'm in Connecticut right now at my parents' house, so we were talking about, the football player that just recently quit. Anyway, we were talking about Bubba, and that, they were asking me how he's doing. I said, he died a long time ago now. And so then we were looking at what he died of, which was, it's a bit related. So, but it's funny that you said if he were afraid of things, that'd be very cute. But he was such a sweet man too. Like I like when they have a dichotomy of of different things. So they look tough, and yet they're sweet as can be, and he was a florist, if you remember, and all that stuff. And so the same with Miriam. She got to be, this kind of scared little person until you pushed her too far into the wall, and then she was going to let you have it.
Yeah, it goes, "Don't move, dirtbag!"
Yeah, right.
Actually, it's interesting. I think one of the best moments for Bubba Smith as Hightower came when his shadow comes over Steve Guttenberg, and he wakes up and you don't know what's going to happen, because he's such an intimidating looking. And he says to Steve, he has just this heart to heart where he says, "I haven't driven a car in such and such a long time, and if I don't pass the driving test, they're going to kick me out." And I love that vulnerability they gave to Hightower there, and it really gave a bond between him and Carrie Mahoney when they ripped the seats out of Copeland's car. And I think it was the director, Hugh Wilson, was it, that played the guy that they accidentally hit from behind?
Yes, that's correct. You're right.
He gets out of the car, "You idiot! You bastard! You!" And he looks in the window, there's Bubba Smith, and he just gets out and he walks back to his car like, "Wrong move." What do you remember anything about what made Hugh Wilson want to do that little cameo?
No, but that would be very much in line of who he was. He was always hanging out with the actors. I think he fancied himself definitely just one of the gang, and he never really held like that kind of position of, a leadership. You have to be, of course, as a director, but he was always hanging out. He loved the actors, man. He was one of the guys. He was definitely one of the gang. So yeah, I could see him wanting to put himself in. Of course, he's gone now too.
Yeah, he is gone. Yeah, a lot of them have gone right now.
Yeah, it's very strange. It is.
Yep.
It does seem like Deborah Lee Scott. I don't know if you remember her in the movie. Anyway. So.
Yeah. Oh, gee, she was so funny as Mrs. Fackler. Oh,
I
my.
liked her in that role. I loved that role.
Man, she was so funny. Like Bruce Maher did Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, the same year, where he played Axel. And he meets a very nasty demise in that film, but he plays the role comedically. And here he is as Fackler, and his voice. I think that's so funny, where she's like, "Don't go, it's so dangerous, don't." And he turns around, he goes, "Honey," and he accidentally catches her right in the gut with the suitcase. Goes, "Don't worry," and he's accident prone, but I loved it when she's like growls, like she's shaking, she growls, and then she goes and she jumps in the swimming pool, and then she gets up, she hops over the fence, leaps over another fence, and when she gets around to where he's driving, she jumps up on the hood and goes, "You move this car another inch, you're finished, mister, you hear me?" Oh, I love that. I felt bad. I heard she committed suicide.
I don't know if it was suicide, was it?
Well, I'm going to look that up, because I know I looked her up when I was looking for, it says on September 11th, 2001, Scott's fiance.
September 11th, 2001, really?
Oh, yeah, September 11th, I guess she lost her, he was killed in the attacks of the World Trade Center. Her husband, who was a police officer.
That is right. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Did he kill her? I didn't realize.
And then it says here in 2005, this is according to Wikipedia, Scott moved to Florida to live with her sister. Shortly after her arrival, Scott collapsed into a coma. She soon recovered and was released from the hospital on her birthday. 3 days later, on April 5th, 2005, she took a nap and apparently died in her sleep. Scott's body was cremated. Oh, okay, maybe she didn't commit suicide. Okay, wrong.
There's a lot of different ways to commit suicide. I think she was pretty messed up, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I think she was involved in a lot of alcohol and possibly drug use. So so I think maybe maybe they're not saying, I don't know, you don't know intent, but one way or another there was,
well, online you never know what is true and what's not, so I'm kind of glad I read this off here. I am sad that she's gone, because I didn't know she was gone until I reached out to get people for Police Academy for the 35th anniversary, and I was like, she was so funny as Fackler's wife. Like, she was just perfect. She was only in that one scene, but man, like, she stole it, She was great.
Yeah, she was really great. She was a really nice person, too.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
It is a shame. Do you remember anything about Bruce Mahler?
No, I mean, I was never very close to Bruce Mahler. In fact, I hate to say something negative, but if anything, he was the only person that used to drive me out of my mind, frankly. Because every time he'd see me, I was just a young person at the time, of course. And he'd always have to ask me when I was going to have kids, and it just pissed me off, frankly. It's like, mind your own business, buddy. So he bothered me. He always just sort of saw me one way as, like, I don't know, wife of actor or something, and when am I going to have children and do my duty, And I didn't like that at all. So
you know what?
Maybe
I think society really pushes that on women,
Yeah.
Because I don't want kids.
Oh, yeah.
I never wanted kids. Yeah.
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 I don't see any. Everybody should have that choice, and you should only have kids if you do want them. That would be a good idea.
Well,
so, but I did wind up having 2 children, but it was just none of his darn business, frankly. So he was the only one that kind of bugged me, to be honest with you.
Well, he gets a hacksaw to his throat in Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Oh, I could watch that then.
Yeah. He's the first one to go in that movie. He was one of the coroners, or at the when they took Jason's body in. Yeah, he stole the scene, for the brief time he was on there. But no, it's sad that Deborah Scott is gone, and she was wonderful. So we'll remember her fondly from this movie. Sad that she's gone, and that 9/11 thing that really affected her, but affected us all.
Yeah, sure.
I remember when that happened. I remember where I was and all of that, and it's like, but we're going to talk about happier things, like David Graf as Tackleberry.
I was going to say something very unusual that probably most people wouldn't understand, possibly, but September 11th, 9/11 didn't really affect me as it affected other people, because I had just lost David. So I had this personal loss that was so great and so profound that I didn't participate in the 9/11 stuff like other people did. Mm-hmm. I was already in my own pain, you see. So it was just one of those things. So it was just a funny thing to talk about now, because it's sort of whitewashed from me, and I feel bad about that. But it was just because of just the timing of it. It's just the nature of what happened, So. I didn't have it. I didn't have that sort of memorial thing going on with everybody else, because I was already in a lot of. I remember one person saying to me, "Now we all know how you feel," and I thought to myself that was kind of inappropriate too, because you don't know how the husbands and wives and children of those victims of 9/11 really feel. It's collectively and nationally something, of course, to mourn, and I'm glad everybody did that. And I think as a country it was important, but individually is where the pain really is. It's in the families and in the people. So I kind of understood it in a different way than other people did. That's all.
Yeah, Graf passed April 7th, 2001. And of course his birthday, April 16th. So you would have had a lot on your plate then. And
Yeah.
But looking at funnier times, though, another scene from the original movie I got to point out is when they're going for, they're driven out to the site for target practice or whatever. And, of course, you get Donovan Scott there. The gun just goes off automatically, and he's heading off. And you got Kim Cattrall and Bubba Smith. They go through successfully, But I liked it when Tackleberry comes up and he looks at the guy and says, he goes, "Come with me." And he's coming out there. He runs out there and he busts into this little door and he starts shooting up all these cardboard cutouts of these bad guys. And he flips over the hood of a car and you got Harris going, "Tackleberry!" And he's just yelling like a madman.
Yes, I do. I loved that scene too. That was one of my faves as well.
Yeah, and he missed them.
He does like a somersault and everything.
He stole every scene he was in. Like even sleeping, he has the gun in his hand. Like,
yeah, that's right.
But no, and he missed the gunfights there when the riot's happening. He starts flopping his head on the car, and Leslie Barber's like, no, it wasn't was it Leslie Barber? I can't remember who. There was a gunfight, and he missed it.
Yeah, I don't know. Leslie Barber? How do I know that name?
He was Donovan Scott, played Leslie Barbara.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. He goes, there was a gunfight, and he missed it.
Yeah. That's right. I remember. You're right.
That original cast was great. Do you have any memories of Steve Guttenberg?
Not too much. Steve's a very nice man. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say about him that I always found very, very impressive, he would, I guess, keep a book, or I don't know how he did it, but he always knew my name. He knew how to ask about, I don't remember if he asked about the children. In other words, he must have kept notes because I didn't see him very often. But he always knew a reference to you when he met you. So I thought I thought it was a very, a good idea. He was very good. He's very business savvy. He mm-hmm. knows what to ask and who to mention and hello, hey Kathy, how are you doing? Haven't seen you in many years. Remember we met? It was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. So he was always a gentleman.
Kim Cattrall went on to a pretty big career.
Oh yeah, she's done great with Sex and the City and mm-hmm. everything else.
Did you have any memories of her?
Well, I just remember I didn't know Kim all that well. We didn't hang out much mm-hmm. At all, I don't think. But we did all go on a boat once. I guess it was probably in Toronto. I don't remember when they were doing one of them. But I just remember we all went on a boat, and must have been the summer because we were all in our bathing suits. And I just remember couldn't get over how gorgeous she was.
Yeah.
In her bathing suit. It was like, oh my God, how does anybody look like that? She was beautiful, just beautiful.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And of course, there's
intimidate anybody.
Yeah. And of course, we got to bring up, Michael Winslow as Laravel Jones, and Andrew Rubin as George Martin. Of course, he's gone. And
I was shocked to hear that during the documentary. I thought, I had no idea that Andy had died.
Yeah. Yeah, he had some interesting up-close moments with Leslie Easterbrook.
Yeah.
Showing up there late at night doing naughty things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And Marion Ramsey, of course, as
Yeah, she's a friend. She's very sweet, very nice person.
Yeah. Did you ever see Michael Winslow? I know he does it on the set, but in the film. But did he ever do his sound effects just for kicks?
Oh, like all the time. Like after a while, you just kind of want to say, Michael, could you go into the other room now for a while? He has a very. I'm sure I haven't seen him in 1,000 years, but he's very, very big-hearted and a very sweet man. And yes, he likes to do his voices and stuff at all times. It gets a little old.
Well, who was
a sweetheart?
Who was David closest to the cast? Was there anybody that he really connected with?
Probably the closest he was to was Leslie Easterbrook, I think.
Okay.
I know, when Sharon Stone was in there, I know David made a friend with her. They hung out for a while. He knew GW, but I don't think they were ever really friends. I guess I think it's got to be Leslie Easterbrook wins that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
G.W. Bailey, I gotta say, I'm so glad they brought him back in the fourth movie, because he is so great at playing Lieutenant Harris. Like, he was so the perfect foil,
Yeah.
And I was glad, because the fourth film, I remember he wasn't in the second and third, and I was like, I wanted to see him just wanted to see him and Bob Goldthwait go at it, and I got my wish in the fourth one, when they went at it. And G.W. Bailey, I remember him saying in an interview that all he needed was that crop staff thing, the baton he had. He said, because he kept blowing on it and polishing it, he said that's all he needed to make that character. And it worked.
Well, that does make sense. He felt empowered by he had that stick in his hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was perfect casting for that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He always reminded me of Sergeant Carter on Gomer Pyle.
Or a less abrasive version of Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, yeah.
And Georgina Spelvin makes an appearance in this as a hooker too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she ends up in a predicament.
Yeah. I don't think I ever met her, actually, but everybody spoke very highly of her. People really, she was supposed to be a very, very, very nice person.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We Police Academy was a massive hit. And I know an actress who worked with Steve Guttenberg, and I guess Steve was told that if he did this movie, apparently, it'd be the end of his career. And I guess it wasn't the end of his career.
No, it did. It worked for almost everybody in it. It helped their careers. It did. I think everybody. I think everybody would do another one in a New York Minute if anybody would ask. But
actually,
it was a lot of fun.
It's interesting you say that, because Donovan Scott didn't do one after the first one. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know why they didn't recur his character.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't recur a lot of people that I actually just thought they did. I mean, it was like you forget, and they were so much a part of the family. And I always say to them, did you do this, or did you get a residual thing for that? And they'll go, well, no, I only did this one, or I only did that one. And I think, because it was always, I always just assumed Donovan was in all of them. I mean, that's just how I looked at it every time we gathered, And I was surprised. Yeah, a lot of them only did like one or sometimes two of the police academies, and yet they're still very much tied to it, aren't they? They're still considered. I mean, everybody knows Donovan from Police Academy,
Yep.
And he only did the one, and so did Deborah Lee, which is, it's kind of extraordinary because we hung out with these guys for so long, and I imagine to some degree they were just praying that they would get a role in these things. Now that I think of it, but at the time, of course, the actors don't have any say in that. But I think everybody would have loved to have seen everybody in every movie. Just bring them all back.
Well, Gutenberg did those first four, and I guess 3 Men and a Baby took him out of the fifth one. And Bubba Smith, David Graf, Michael Winslow, Marion Ramsey, they were pretty much in all of them.
Yeah.
And
even the Moscow one, they went.
Yep.
I gave birth to our second child, Sean, while David was in Moscow hanging out with Claire Forlani.
Oh yeah, I know.
And being in touch with his wife, giving birth.
Oh, Claire was gorgeous.
Yeah, totally gorgeous. So that was my big joke. It's like, excuse me, I'm sorry, but I'm giving birth now. But as long as you're having a good time with Claire. I still have the notes he took. He brought them back with me, and he had all the notes of how many centimeters dilated and what, how big he was when he finally got into the world. And it was so funny, because he was smoking cigars and drinking some sort of ridiculously expensive something, probably vodka in Russia, and having a good time while I'm giving birth in Santa Monica, California.
Well,
it was great. We loved it. I mean, he loved every single bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
He loved all of it, and he was always very, very gracious to anybody, any fan that came up to him, and always. And I don't remember him ever turning anybody away. So that was nice. That's to his credit.
Did David, I don't know what the convention scene was back then, but did he ever get to do the conventions?
He did the comic something or whatever it's called. I can't remember now. He did a couple of them, and I don't think he ever felt that they were all that lucrative or did worthwhile. But other people I know, a lot of my friends, and I have Star Trek friends and all that. A lot of my actor friends that have done well, they do it, and they do really well with it. So I don't know why David got sort of unlucky on a couple he went to, and it might have just been an unlucky time, just a bad day.
Yeah.
But he didn't pursue it very much at all. He didn't. No.
Because you would think they'd be doing something for the 35th anniversary of the original.
Well, they may very well be. I mean, one of these guys in the documentary thing that they were doing, I know he does those conventions and he organizes them, and for all I know, they're all doing it this year. I really don't know. I mean, I wouldn't expect to be invited to that. And
why wouldn't you? Because there's a lot of people that do the conventions for their significant other who has passed, and I'm like Bela Lugosi Jr. does them, and Victoria Price, who's the daughter of Vincent Price, she does them. Sarah Karloff,
is that right?
Boris Karloff's daughter does them. Lon Chaney's offspring children, does them as well. A lot of them will do them, and they're flabbergasted.
I haven't looked into that.
Yeah.
I haven't looked into that. Maybe I should. It can be lucrative. I know that.
Well, here's the thing, you're there in honor of your husband, and people would love to talk to you about David. I mean, he was Tackleberry. He was in all the films. So, yeah. I mean, I met George Romero's wife at Horrorama, and of course, this was after he passed. And she was very nice. She was selling like little flush dolls of her husband, and stuff.
Well, you never know. I mean, I don't really pursue it that much just because I've gone on my own way, but at the same time, I mean, I could send an email over to the guys that did the documentary and see if there's any call for that.
Sure.
See if they, if it could be worth my while to go to L.A. or maybe there's one in New York. I don't know.
Yeah. But Police Academy 2, you mentioned, was your favorite. And, of course, we got introduced to Bob Goldthwait as Zed. He and Tim Kaczynski as Sweet Chuck, I thought were so fun, especially in the third film where they get on the fourth. One of the funniest jokes to me in the third film is where they're punished and they're told to go out pick litter out in the middle of the night, and of course you see these flashlights all moving around, and Sweet Chuck is like, Zed, do you think this is gonna work? And he goes, sure it is, it's working. Of course you see two dogs like fighting with each other, flashlights tied around them, and of course from the window the lieutenants all think this just see the flashlights moving around. I thought that was a great joke.
What were they looking for? Did you say? I can't remember.
Oh, they got in trouble, so they were sent out there in the middle of the night to pick garbage up as their punishment.
Oh, that's what it was. Yes, I do remember now. Yeah, I like that, and I was in number 5.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yep.
And so that was sort of my favorite too, only because I was part of the whole team, So that was fun as well, and that was really neat to be in Miami too, because I loved Miami.
You were
and then the fun thing about that one is that it maybe it was an omen or a portend to what's to come, but I had to audition for that role, and it wasn't scripted. Mm-hmm. And I'd done improv for a long time, so they just said, well, why don't you just start improvising something, because we don't have anything for you to do, for anything to say as a stewardess. And so I just wrote a line. I just made one up. I just made it up on the spot, and that's the one that went in, and it was in the trailer. So I was kind of proud of myself about that. And now, of course, now that I write, I realize, so maybe that was just a little hint as to what was to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote my own line in the Police Academy movies.
Oh, that was fantastic. What were your memories of Miami and shooting in that film, besides the line?
Janet Jones was in those, and she was another gorgeous woman. So I was just kind of in awe of her. She, so they were all at the beach, and everybody was, having a really nice time. There was Matt McCoy was in there then as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only one he wound up doing.
He did too. He did the sixth one as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Of course, he went on to do L.A. Confidential. He appeared in that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all, again, every time this group got together, I don't remember anything, and I don't mean to sound so Pollyanna, but honestly, everybody just always had fun together. I don't remember any problems that any of the cast had with each other. There might have been, but nobody ever shared them with me, and I was happy about that. Everybody just seemed to have a really, really fun time together. We're in Miami, we're having per diem, we're hanging out, drinking a lot, being on the beach. It was great. What's not to like?
In the original film, there's, of course, a beach party, and you see Tackleberry, David, of course, playing the one of the horned instruments, saxophone.
Alto sax. Yeah, David played the alto sax. I think that was his own saxophone that he brought with him.
Yeah, so he was a musician as well, huh?
Well, he played the sax. That's about all, and he didn't really play it very often. In fact, I saw it in the movie and was like, oh, I didn't know you played that. So that's how often he played the saxophone. But he had it; it was his, and he did know how to play. He was musical. I mean, he did understand music. He could sing. He was trained as a musician, as a musical theater person as well. So he was also extremely. One thing that people might not know is that he had an extraordinary talent that I myself do not possess. With like for instance, he was a Klingon, and he learned that language very quickly. He was very good at learning languages and being able to say things back perfectly. So it's really quite a gift for an actor. So they would call him David, Star Wars and Star Trek. I mean, would call him whenever they needed a Klingon, because he could literally pick it up, memorize it, and know it. This whole new language that was completely made up to begin with. So he was very good at that sort of thing. So musically, he was very attuned to the language of music, the language of odd languages, and he was very good at that. Yeah, it was a real gift. Like I couldn't even audition for really lawyer or legalese stuff and medical, all that kind of stuff. It's like, could you just give me like the mom roles, because I can't handle that kind of dialogue. But David could handle anything like that. He was really, really a pro.
Well, you mentioned the second film. His character really did have even more, because of course you got the in-laws, and he's sitting there at the table and they're punching each other.
That's right. He found the right woman.
Yep. I love the fact that they added stuff like this, and of course and the third one, he takes Sweet Chuck under his wing, and stuff like that. And
yeah, when they add a little heart to the roles, it's really good. It's good. Yeah, they were very good at expanding some of the characters' roles. I thought they did a good job with that, especially David. They gave him so much heart, and like you said with Bubba too. They did a good job. I thought the writing of it, they did good with that, of expanding the characters and stuff.
Yeah, again, going back, I never understood why Roger Ebert said he didn't find Police Academy funny. I don't get that, and I respect him, but I never agreed with this verdict.
Huh. Well, I don't know, and art is subjective, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? And slapstick, stuff like they've even started making a category with the Academy Awards, because people overlook comedy when comedy is very hard to do.
Yep.
But it was overlooked for many, many, many. You're not a serious actor if you're doing something funny or slapsticky. Only a drama, that sort of thing, and that's just not really accurate at all.
Yeah.
So, but that's just what was, especially in those days. A little different now, I think. A little different. People are more savvy about that. I hope.
Did David keep any?
I think we honor our comedian actors a lot too.
Yeah. Did David have any comedian that he admired, especially going into a role like this?
Oh, wow. He likes all the old timers like Milton Berle and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we listened and watched just about everything. So, but I don't remember him having somebody he really looked up to or admired. He's probably up there. If he's watching me right now, he's going, "What, are you out of your mind? I used to love this," and I can't remember who. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't remember that. It's been a while. It's been a long time. Since I've I was just thinking about that the other day. Like, there's certain things that I'm starting to forget. About our marriage and stuff, which is completely normal
mm-hmm.
and fine, but it's a little weird. It's a little disconcerting. It's like, wow, I don't remember that. Time heals all wounds, they say. But he just admired everybody. I love slapstick,
mm-hmm.
Marx Brothers, all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
We both. I don't remember us ever being so avidly interested in one particular person. I don't know that.
Did he keep any of the props from the movies?
David's kept everything. My husband was a pack rat, and I've just now. Because of this move, I got rid of a lot of stuff. I saved stuff obviously for the kids,
mm-hmm.
a certain amount of stuff, but he collected almost everything. So he had a lot of stuff from the police academy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I went and got some of it appraised, and really not much. There was no big financial gain for it all. I saved some of the stuff. Obviously, I saved. He's an action figure, which is really, really cool. So of course I saved those, and things like that. But he saved, pretty much everything. He had his billy club that I just recently got rid of when I realized that I've been lugging that around with me. He had a billy club. He had his guns. I don't know if he had the guns from there. I just got rid of his leather jacket that he wore. I realized I was lugging that around, and that weighs about 40 pounds, these things. And so I had his police academy outfit that I got rid of. So in other words, I had I had to kind of honor my own life going forward and say, this is enough. I'm done lugging all the police academy stuff around. I did bring a lot of it in for the documentary. I brought in all the stuff I had. A lot of it. He had a children's toy of the police academy precinct. I brought that in. They took pictures. They copied whatever photographs I had. I took all that stuff in for them. So good. It's being, properly put in place with this mm-hmm. documentary. But I haven't heard from the documentarians yet.
Okay.
I really would like to get a copy of that, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
So that'll be great. But yeah, he saved a lot of that stuff, and a little too much, to be honest. And he did have a lot of gun collections. I found them after he died. I didn't know he had so many guns. So I had Brandt. So that's a funny story. So Brandt von Hoffman,
mm-hmm.
who I don't remember his character. You have to help me.
Blanks.
Okay, so he came over, and I asked him to help me with all the guns I was finding around the house. And, and then I found ammo in different other places. He did it safely, but I didn't know what to do with them. And so Brandt came over, made sure they were all safe, took care of all that for me. And then he has never quite forgiven me in a happy, jokey way, because when I went cross-country, and I did move back again to L.A., so I moved for a while, and you weren't allowed to bring any firearms, and rather than sneak them, which everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
I brought them to the police station and turned them in, and I remember doing that, and I explained who they were. I was Tackleberry's wife, and the police officer said to me, and I'll never forget it, he goes, Tackleberry? That's a lexicon in police terms. Everybody we call a new recruit that's all gung-ho, we call him a Tackleberry. I thought that was so cool. So I brought him to my car, and I opened the trunk, and I showed him all the loot. And he was like, you sure? And I said, well, what else am I going to do? Well, it was illegal for me to transport them. So I think the cop was like, this woman's going to regret this. But he took them. And then when I told Brant that, he's still mad at me. He says, you gave away the guns? Are you out of your mind? Why didn't you call me? So, yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Well, there was a few years between Police Academy 6 and Mission to Moscow, and I don't know whether they were running out of ideas or how the story. Do you know anything about that space in between and when David got the call to do Mission to Moscow?
No, but I know he was pretty happy because, of course, it was more money than you make just doing, the guest star or, a week on this or a week on that. So, and we were having a second child, so I remember we were kind of whooping it up a little bit. Wasn't any kind of money like he was making with the other 6, as I recall, but it was a chance to go to Moscow, which would be awesome, and he was really excited about that. His brother went with him for a while and met him over there. And I was pregnant, so I didn't go. But I don't remember why it went dead for a period of time, but I do remember it did, and how happy they were to have it. And I do remember seeing some, if not, I probably saw all of Mission to Moscow. I did, in the theater, but I only saw it once because it was really pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So by then it was kind of like, okay, I think we've used this up. We've wrung out every drop we're going to get out of this sponge, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So it kind of needed to, I think, go fallow for a while. Whether it comes back or not with some new blood would be good. But yeah, it was. Listen, who gets a film series of 7? I mean, it was just quite fortunate.
Actually, in terms of comedy, I can't think of another comedic series that has done that. I mean, American Pie did, but American Pie had a lot of them direct to video, I think they had like 4 of them hit the theater. So I don't know if I really count the direct to video, whereas Mission to Moscow did have a limited release in theaters. We had all 6 of the first 6 at our theaters. But Mission to Moscow did not come here. But I do know it was limited release.
Yeah, it was, and I know it was only in the theaters for a very short period of time, as I recall. I don't even remember if I saw that after he died or not, because I did see it alone. I remembered that.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what year that was. Well, I do know it was year, because it was the year my son was born, so it would be 1993. And then he didn't die till 2001, so he was probably just on location, which is why I went and saw it alone.
Oh, okay.
He was probably doing another. So he would go on with the location, of course, with other things. He had a very good career, and he did not only the police academies, but that really brought him, to the fore, and he was able to do a lot of different films, both comical stuff and dramatic stuff. He had a good career, very nice career.
Talk about the Brady Bunch movie.
Oh, I love the Brady Bunch movie. It was just so dear to my own heart. So we're friends of Gary Cole, and he played Mike Brady. And David had worked with Shelley Long before in Irreconcilable Differences, with Sharon Stone as well. Anyway, so it was kind of, there were some. Anyway, they did it. I can't remember which lot it was on, but I do remember this. I went to visit because I was really excited about it, that he was playing Sam the Butcher, and I'd grown up with the Brady Bunch, of course. And I get there, and I'm pretty far away from the set, and I'm looking at it, and it looks absolutely identical to the house that they lived in. And I'm seeing Gary Cole, who looks just like Mike Brady, even though he's a friend of mine. He looks too much like Mike Brady. So I'm seeing all these people. I'm going, oh my God, it's the Brady Bunch. I can't believe I'm on the set of the Brady Bunch. And then all of a sudden, here comes down the stairs my husband. It was like, whoa, wait, hold on. it was this time warp thing that happened inside of me. Like, wait a minute, how did he get here? It was just really, really cool. He had so much fun doing that. I still have Sam's butcher shop apron that I'll keep forever.
Yeah.
And that was a really fun thing because it was shot locally in LA where we were. The Brady Bunch house was right in our neighborhood at the time, and I remember saying to Betty, I can't remember her last name, the director, I said,
Betty Thomas.
Betty Thomas. I said,
Yeah.
have you ever noticed that like the house is an A-frame on the left side, but in the TV show when you walk into the house, the stairs are on the right side. I said, I don't know that this works. And she said, we're not going to talk about that right now. No, she said, we're not asking. We don't ask about that. No, I might have been wrong, but I thought the A-frame would be on the other side. So anyway, I don't know. But anyway, so it was near and dear because we knew a lot of the actors, and it was in our neighborhood. And, of course, we all grew up with Brady Bunch, so it was a very cool thing to have happened.
I grew up with the Brady Bunch as well. I enjoyed that, and I got to say this too. Gary Cole, of course, he went on, of course, to play Bill Lumbergh in Office Space.
That's right.
That's what I think of every time I think of Gary Cole as Lumbergh. He was so great.
That is one of the most funniest roles. Like people still like, try to talk like that, just people regularly just kind of go around, yeah. Gary Cole's great. He's such a great actor.
I've heard great things about Gary Cole. I've interviewed people that have worked with him before. In fact, I've interviewed a director who worked with an actor that was this particular actor was his worst experience working with somebody. And Gary Cole was in the same movie. And he said that where this other actor was so unprofessional, he said Gary Cole was the total opposite. He was just a pleasure to work with.
Oh, that's nice. I'm glad to hear that.
Mm-hmm. So I've heard good things about Gary Cole.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
I remember
his wife too. She's passed now. She just recently died, actually. So.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I remember a line he had in the Brady Bunch movie. He goes, "Wherever you go, there you are," or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, no kidding. David Graf did a lot of television too, and I don't have it all right in front of me, but what television roles did David Graf like doing the best?
Well, when I first met him, he was just getting started on it, things, and he actually wound up, we had to make a, what do you call it, I'm just losing the name of it. For tax purposes, we had to incorporate an incorporation, which helps the individual actor, and we called it Thug a Week because he was the thug every week on every TV show, and that's how he made his career, and that started it. Then he did a TV movie called The Town Bully, and he was the star of that. That was a big win for him to get that. He was in almost a lot of them. The last thing he ever did was with Bob Saget, and it was a TV show that he had. And the reason I'm even remembering this, he played a Frenchman. Again, I told you he's very good with accents and whatnot. So he played a Frenchman. And it was very funny. And I remember I was like sent the show, and they had honored David at the end of it and said, in memory of. So I think that was the last show he ever did. He was friends with Bob Saget, as far friendly with Bob Saget. So I think Bob, sent that to me to honor David. So that was very sweet, very nice. But he did, so he's Thug of the Week, so he was the thug, of course, with a face like that kind of thing. And he was big. He was almost 6'5".
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a big guy. But for David, it was all about just let me work. I just want to work all the time. And every time he finished a job, he said, I'm unemployed again.
Mm-hmm.
And it drove him nuts. But he had a better career than most people, so he worked a lot. And you can't complain when you're working a lot in this business. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard business, and so many of our friends were suffering at the time. So, you toe the line and you keep your mouth shut if you're not working, because so many people aren't,
There's a couple.
But he did good. So
yeah.
I don't know what else. He all comedy roles. Oh, then he was in. So another generational shift happened for him when he got cast as a role called Brink.
Okay.
Brink.
Yeah.
And then it became like, instead of the young people knowing him from Police Academy, a new generation was knowing him from Brink. And everybody's like, oh my God, you're the dad in Brink! You're the dad in Brink! So it was like we went from Tackleberry, all the drunken young people, to all these little kids knowing him in a different way. And that was really, he loved that. Just loved it, because he had all these younger people now, these young kids that were, that knew him. And that always made him happy.
There's a couple other roles I got to bring up too, like Rules of Engagement. He's in that. And what was it like for him to work with William Friedkin?
Well, if you're asking me, I don't know, because
Okay.
I don't know if I've ever even seen Rules of Engagement, to be completely honest. There's a lot of things I didn't see, and I know that might sound kind of like a rotten wife thing, but you have to understand that we had 2 children, working a lot. And I just didn't. After a while, you just kind of go, how was the job? The job's good, great. Okay, I got another audition. Okay, good. And you're not really thinking. I remember I never saw Jag, which every now and then I get a residual for, and I feel kind of guilty about it because I've never seen it.
Yeah.
So there are a few that escaped me. Rules of Engagement escaped me. Jag. You know what else I never saw? This is terrible to admit. He had a recurring role in West Wing, and I've never seen one of them.
Okay.
And I never see him in it, and I've never seen West Wing at all. And for no other reason other than probably I was just swamped busy, with life.
Well, I wasn't.
So there are things that just. Yeah.
I wasn't exactly a fan of Rules of Engagement, William Friedkin, of course, directed The Exorcist and The French Connection, and so, but I mean, Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel L. Jackson was in this movie, and they have David Graf listed for that. And, of course, they have him listed here for Citizen Roof, which I saw a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. That was a good movie. I enjoyed that.
Yep. Citizen Roof, of course, Alexander Payne. Of course, I just interviewed somebody from the movie Election, which he did after this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Payne was a really good director.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Did David have a favorite, I don't know whether it's Tackleberry, but a favorite thing he's done?
It would definitely be Tackleberry.
Tackleberry.
But, okay, so aside from Tackleberry, he also just we both loved, I went to all of them I could, the game show thing that he was doing. And that made him a little bit of money, but it was just so much fun. And he was he's a very intelligent man and very quick, and he was very good at the game shows. So they had him in a lot. And that was a lot of fun, going down with Dick Clark and, getting to know them. I met Betty White. I met, it's just like, to me, it was Patty Duke, who I grew up with on Patty Duke's show. And I was over the moon, and he loved every single second of that. And then, let's see, regular television, aside from Police Academy, I remember he was really happy to get Town Bully, because he was like the star of that. And that was a big one for him. Brady Bunch. He got another TV show called He's the Mayor, and he did that for, I think, just one season. Didn't do very well, but it was fun for him. He struggled a little bit with that role. He didn't like that as much. But that happens to actors all the time. Some roles fit you like a glove, and some you have to kind of work it a little bit.
What about Guarding Tess?
Oh, Guarding Tess. Yeah, that was a lot of fun for him to work on, because a lot of his buddies from Police Academy wound up in it. Because did Hugh direct that? Is that how the connection? Probably.
Yeah, Hugh Wilson directed that. Yeah.
Okay. So he had all his buddies there. Like him and Hugh and Brandt have always been really, really close. So Brandt was in that, and David. And even though he didn't have very much to say or do, I think he just hired his buddies, and let them, stand around and act like, what do you call it? Whatever they are. They had a guard the guard Shirley MacLaine.
Shirley MacLaine, yeah.
That was fun, and I enjoyed that movie too.
Yeah.
And Nick Cage. Yeah.
Nicolas Cage.
That was in Baltimore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, it's all coming back to me now.
Yeah. What was...
David loved every role he ever got. Trust me. He also liked stage a lot. We did a little bit of it together. And he did a few things in between television and film on stage. He always liked getting on stage. It was a little harder when you had kids and you had a career. His agents wanted him to be able to audition and be able to go on locations and whatnot. And when you're doing stage, there's always that, you're constantly having to fight your agents because they want to make money, and you're not making any money on stage. So it's always that way, though.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, this is a question I ask a lot of people who did the cons, but maybe you might have seen something here. What's the most odd thing he's ever been asked to sign?
Huh. Ever been asked to sign?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know.
I hear a lot from guests, that they'll sign somebody's skin, and then they'll see them later. They got the signature tattooed on them.
Oh. You know what? It does seem to me, I'm kind of having a memory of it, but I don't remember what it was. I don't know. He probably did something like that. He may not have told me. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he had such a full life. It was too short, granted, but he had a very lucky and very full life of both personally and professionally. He did life well. I mean, Richard Griffiths, who did Guarding Tess with us, who was the British actor.
Yep.
Then became famous, of course, for the Harry Potter movie.
Yep.
Too. But he once said about David, and he wrote me this beautiful letter when he died, but he said he was the most American person he'd ever met. And I think he meant that David was just always gung-ho, always ready, always understood everything. My husband was an avid magazine reader, and not people. I'm talking about like popular mechanics and science, and he knew a lot about everything. His scope was very, very wide. And so anytime you asked him how to do this, David knew how to do that. So after a while, I used to say, "Oh, shut up, you know it all. Nobody wants to hear it all the time." But he did. He knew a lot. You can always call on David to ask him about new electronics. He was always up to speed. He was one of the first persons to have a cell phone that at that point was about 5 pounds. They were gigantic. David knew about everything ahead of time.
Oh, wow.
And he was he was totally into it. He had the first cell phone of all our friends. They all made fun of him. He knew how to do. He could wire anything basically.
I hate to go to
very electronic.
I hate to go to a dark place here, but what do you remember about his funeral? And did the police academy folks show up to that?
Oh, I think every one of them did.
Yeah.
I remember Bubba and some friends, I think his brother, a couple of other, must have been football players because they were all gigantic. And I remember them outside of the church where we had his memorial. So we had a memorial in Studio City at our church, and then we had a funeral in Ohio where he's buried. So, and the memorial at the church, they had to set up, I think it was 4 or 5 rooms that had to be wired because there was such an overspill of people. So we found out ahead of time basically how many people were showing up. And one of our friends, Bob Wexler, had a video camera company, and he set up 4 or 5 rooms with a video and audio of the service, so that everybody, it was about a 2.5-hour service, and there were well over 1,000 people. And it was just gigantic. And then we had a little thing at the house afterwards where the paparazzi showed up.
Oh,
it was like nuts. It was like, wait a minute. I mean, look, he did a great job, but he wasn't, Brad Pitt, Yeah. I mean, so we were kind of like, what? And my brother, who's an FBI agent, I remember coming up to me at the house and saying, "There's reporters outside, Kathy, and I'm willing to like keep them at bay, but maybe you want them. Do you want them to come in?" I said, "Absolutely not."
Yeah.
And so he handled everything for me on that kind of way.
Yeah.
And it was packed. I mean, the whole helicopter. It was crazy. It was like, wow. I don't think we had any idea. We were just a family of four.
Yeah.
That had a nice place, but we were just working stiff.
Yeah.
And we consider ourselves working stiff actors. David was on the board of Screen Actors Guild.
Mm-hmm.
He was a proponent of the working actor,
Mm-hmm.
about stop paying the stars $13 million for a movie and start giving it to the people that are that need it to support their families.
I agree.
The other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was big into that. He was on the Screen Actors Guild. He was also the head of our, for lack of a better word, our head of the PTA at our children's school.
Mm-hmm.
He was very, very big into the community. So he was the first person in our community, which was very strong and very large, to die. And it was crushing to many, many people.
Yes.
I had to tell people, because people were leaving messages on machines, and I had to take all those people in and say, guys, you don't understand what David meant to people. You cannot leave this on the machine. Sorry.
Yeah.
But he meant a lot to people. And he was very personable. And, you can't just make that flippant. You have to, tell people face to face, or at least on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a huge, huge loss for our community. And the memorial was brilliant. So Leslie and Miriam,
Mm-hmm.
Leslie Easterbrook and Miriam, they sang. I asked them to sing.
Mm-hmm.
They had a surprise 50th birthday for him the year before.
Mm-hmm.
I had it on April Fool's Day, so I fooled him because
Mm-hmm.
his birthday was on the 16th. I saved all my money. I only used my own residuals, and I would hide it in the safe deposit box, so he never knew. It wasn't a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of money like that. You'd think we did, but we didn't. I didn't want to use a penny of his for his party.
Mm-hmm.
And so I arranged everything. I found the cheapest way to go about most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a blast. It was at a friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody came, and everybody was told to bring fun stories or some silly thing, and we laughed like crazy, and that was the very last birthday he ever had.
Yeah.
So who knew? Thank God I did that.
Well,
but yeah. So his was it would affect the people. I had the Bill, oh gosh, I'm losing the name now. He was the president of the Screen Actors Guild.
Okay.
This beautiful note, and they said how that when he had come over to our house and we talked him into running for the Screen Actors Guild, and he said it was the best time he ever had in the Screen Actors Guild, and he's remembered our home and the fun we had that night, so fondly and everything. It was just very sweet. I mean, you just fill up,
Yeah.
You fill up with all the love, and so yeah, it was and then we had the funeral was in Ohio, where he, as I said, he's buried, and it was terrible. I mean, it was terrible. My son broke down at the gravesite, and it was just, you just don't even want to know. I don't even want to remember this stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I barely remember a lot of this stuff. And then, like, just last night, my mom was telling me a little bit about certain things she remembered, and it was like, oh boy, I don't even want to go back there anymore.
That's all right. I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying. I'm trying to reflect positively. So my apologies. But,
no, not at all. It's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, it's part of it,
Yeah. No, we're here to We're here to celebrate them. So yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. How are the kids?
They're wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So my oldest one's getting married October 12th, which is one of the reasons I've moved to New York.
Okay.
Not just because he's getting married, but it just my father was getting sick. I'm here now at their house. He's doing a lot better. My son's getting married. I thought, it's time. I can finally go where I've always wanted to live, is New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, he's getting married, and my youngest one is in L.A.,
Mm-hmm.
and he is he works. I don't know if I'm allowed to say any of this. I don't remember, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. He works for James. He's working on the movies, Avatar movies, and
Okay.
he's PA, production assistant on those. And
Okay.
he's just getting started. He's 25 years old, and it's a great gig to have. It's just a great gig to have because James Cameron wants to just keep making Avatar movies. So good.
I guess Avatar and Terminator.
There you go. Exactly. That's right. That's out now too. So
Yep.
yay. So
Yeah.
they're both doing really, really well. We're a very tight three, and we have a lot of we're a good family. So.
Well, here's a question I'd like to ask my guests too, and I'd love for you to be able to plug any charities that you're involved in, and what David was involved in as well. What charities do you want to plug on here?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, we did do one of mine is the Children's Hospital Los Angeles. I used to give blood there, and we put some of the donations towards that. David's charity, well, it was all geared more towards children. I don't remember what we did together as groups. We weren't all that, we were young and starting out at the time. I'm more involved in activism and whatnot now, in my older years when I don't have the kids to take care of. I know this may sound strange, and forgive me and everybody out there, but, I think David, if he were alive now, would be helping with gun control, to be honest with you. He would have been a good voice for it, saying, I have guns, I love my guns, but here are the kind of guns people should have, I don't think it's that big of a deal. So I'm involved in that, and trying to reduce the amount of military-style weapons, and just have it be, have a gun for hunting or, going to the gun range, which I've been to many times myself, but for goodness sake, let's make sure our children and our people are safe. So
you know what?
I think he would do that.
It's interesting because I'm not an anti-gun person, but gee, we got to keep guns away from people that shouldn't have them. And like people have this attitude like, oh, they're trying to take our guns away. We're not trying to take guns away from anybody other than the people that shouldn't have them. And there's something wrong there, I'll tell you that.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
I agree, and it just keeps getting worse, and it's mind, and everybody wants it. I mean, apparently, like 84% of people in the United States want it, and I do understand it. It's gross. It's just gross.
Yeah.
Because, what's freedom? Your freedom to own a gun is better than your freedom to be able to walk somewhere or go to an event or a venue and not be afraid of being, slaughtered.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't freedom supposed to be about being able to send your kids to school and not worry about them? I don't know how parents do it these days. It's terrifying.
It is scary.
Ever since Sandy Hook, I just have a different feeling about my country. I never, ever thought things would change so enormously after that. And, you slaughter 6-year-olds, forget about it. Just forget. I mean, that's it. The end. Should be the end. And it wasn't.
It should have been, absolutely. Well, the thing is, I don't have a passport. I've had guests ask me to go to cons in the States, and I'm like, I don't really want to go to the States. Like, I'm a co-producer on a movie being shot in New Mexico. Let's go premiere in Los Angeles. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the premiere because of stuff that's going on in the States. And some people say it's not that bad. But jeepers, you turn the radio on and this is all you're hearing.
Well, I agree with you. And I guess we're not even, I guess we have the State Department's issued warnings against our own, other State Departments have issued warnings about going to the United States as it being a place that's not as safe as it used to be. And yes, when you're here and you're living your own life, I mean, it's a big, 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 big country. So you're not, you're not terrified. But I'll tell you something, every time my sons tell me they're going to a concert or doing something like that, part of my hackles go up. I get scared. You don't stop doing them, but the worry factor, there's just no reason for it. There's just no reason for it. It's just a simple fix. It really is a simple fix.
Yep.
To start things, just start things in the right direction for the safety of our people.
There's a lot of greed and corruption out there.
There is a lot of greed and corruption out there, yes. And I'm becoming more of an activist myself, and trying to do my bit as much as I can. And I actually thought about running for office at one point, and then I thought, I don't have thick skin. That's my problem.
Yeah.
I'm very much an artist that cries over everything. And I don't think I want people, when these people from Amsterdam in Action go, there are people that intimidate them by having these giant, machine guns just a few feet away from them. And I don't know if I could handle it, frankly. I don't know. But I can write letters, and I can, do things in an office. So that's what I'm trying to find my way to help. That's what I've been doing.
Okay.
Do my bit. So.
I know you've got a web page that you want to plug on here.
Oh, I know. I don't necessarily want to plug it. You mean my own page?
You can plug it. Does David Graf have a page? Like, is there one open for him?
There is on Facebook. I don't know who did it. I didn't do it. And then every once in a while, somebody will post. Every once in a while, I check it out. Every once in a while, I'm surprised. I also went to this thing called, Leave a Flower or something, and the Find a Grave thing, which really upset me, actually, because they have a picture of his grave on there, which I think is really remarkably bad.
Yeah.
But I don't. I every once in a while I'll see something, or somebody sends me a note on my professional page and says, "Hey, I was a big fan of your," like you did.
Yeah.
And I was a big fan of your husband's for whatever reason, or I remember him doing this, and I just want to say how I miss him, and it's kind of incredibly wonderful and sweet,
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I mean, my own playwriting is not, I'm like, everything just kind of fell apart. And so I thought, okay, well, that's life, but it's not going to wreck my life. So I decided to remake myself and maybe write a book or something, do something different. That's that's been my life, is a constant sort of remaking and adjustments and adaptations. And I think that's pretty much life for most people.
And you were a stewardess.
There you go.
Well, Kathryn, I'm happy that you come on here, and I hope I haven't gone too deep on some of the stuff. I can hear you sniffling a little bit back there, and my apologies.
All right.
Yeah, but I was so happy to have you come on here and honor David Graf and the 35th anniversary of Police Academy. And I haven't seen Brink, but I do remember him as Tackleberry. And yeah. I was going to say, before we wrapped up, is there any last thoughts you want to share about David that maybe the average person might not know that you want to share?
Well, he loved to camp.
Okay.
He loved to do, he was kind of like, he wasn't quite an Eagle Scout, ever got his Eagle Scout thing, but basically he was pretty much that way. When I wrote my one-woman show, I said it's like living with a 6'4" Boy Scout. So he just pretty much loved everything. I mean, I know that sounds a little corny, but he was just, he had a potato gun in the backyard. He had giant things of water in case there was an earthquake. Like anybody, when an earthquake happened, everybody came to our house. He was the guy he protected everybody on the school campus. He was the head of the PTA, but he was also what he called Quake Boy. He made the name up because he was very much a boy. And so he was in charge of earthquake preparedness. And, he loved all that stuff. He loved just helping. And I finally had to say to him, you're on the board of this, you're on the board of that, you're going on. I need to not be holding down the fort this much. You got to start, kind of deciding which ones are best and which ones aren't, because I need your help. So, that's what marriage is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he had an extremely large life. He was an extremely large person in all ways. He was, as they call it, bigger than life, but he was that way. And I think everybody who ever met him would probably say exactly the same thing. There was no guile really there. Very straightforward, very authentic.
Do you think if they came to you and asked you to play a female Tackleberry in the 8th film, you could do that?
No, I don't think that would be my. I don't think they would want me for that role. You know, Leslie was good at that sort of thing, and so was Colleen Camp. I could do it, but I mean, I could do it as an actress. But the truth is that no, I'm more, you know, of a different ilk, a different type, probably. But if they asked me to be in one, I'd say yes, because that would be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
You know? And they've threatened me a few times, but I have never gotten a call, so we'll see.
I'm going to try to round up some of these people for the show, like Leslie Easterbrooks and Donovan Scott. Got to try to get some of these people on here to celebrate this film. But today we are celebrating David Graf. Thank you so much for joining me in this tribute, you know, and honoring his memory. And like I said, Police Academy to me, you know, when I hear the title, either Steve Guttenberg comes to mind or David Graf, you know, like the two faces that seem to pop up in my head, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Before I let you go,
thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Hi, my name's Kathy Graf, and I'm having the pleasure of honoring my husband, David Graf of the Police Academy movies. And I'm talking with a really wonderful guy from Python Paradise. His name is Greg Gilbert from New Brunswick, Canada. And we've had such a great time talking about David and the Police Academy movies and his career as an actor. And I encourage everybody to listen in, and he's going to have some other people on that'll probably be really interesting as well, hopefully, and from the Police Academy movies. But if not, even now, just me talking, it was like going back in time and revisiting some friends. And thank you, Greg. I really appreciate it, and I encourage y'all to listen in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and I really appreciate you coming on here, and I love the fact that you're a very strong person. And you're a survivor. You are a survivor.
I am a survivor.
Yeah, I can tell you're very you're stronger than Tackleberry.
Well, you know, most women are stronger than their guys. You know, they need us for that. It's a good thing. You know, men are for good things for one thing, and women are good for another. And you know, David used to always say that about me. Oh, you did this, you did that. 'Cause I'm very self-made, even before I met him. Mm-hmm. And so it served me well through the bad thing that's happened. You know, mm-hmm. And he gave me such great son. When people say, "Oh, you were their mom," your sons or this or that, I say, yeah, but I also got really lucky with the gene pool as far as a kind man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Well, thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you, and you have yourself a wonderful day, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Yes.
You too.
Take care.
Take good care.
Bye-bye.